For our first story, we have update, 26 male, 3 years with fiancé, 24 female, she's got me paying for her entire family. Is this getting out of hand? Original post. Link. Sorry it took time to update, it has been a hectic few days. I didn't expect this whole situation to blow up like it has. I thought I was just making a decision for my own well-being, but the amount of support and advice I've received has been overwhelming. Thank you to everyone who offered their thoughts. Seriously, it's been helpful in ways I didn't anticipate. I told her I can't go through with the wedding. I explained that the constant financial stress, the guilt, tripping, and the complete lack of boundaries from her family have made it not possible for me to see a healthy future with her. Her initial reaction was a mix of anger and tears, but when her family found out, they started harassing me with messages, accusing me of abandoning her and claiming I need to panagutan, or to be accountable for her because she was a virgin before we met. She helped me a lot. Their messages quickly escalated into threats, making it clear they were trying to pressure me into staying in the relationship and continuing to support them financially. On top of that, when I mentioned that I'd been so stressed I was considering getting a vasectomy because I can't imagine raising children in such a toxic environment, her family's harassment only intensified. They're now demanding I go through with the wedding or pay up. Thankfully, my parents have been an incredible source of support through all of this. They're fully behind my decision to call off the wedding and have even offered to help me handle the harassment legally if needed. I've saved all the messages and threats to protect myself in case this goes further. I also told my fiancée she needs to move out of my place. Now she's refusing to leave unless I give her 6 months or a year of living costs and rent up front. It feels like she's just trying to take advantage of me one last time before the relationship is officially over. This has been one of the most draining experiences of my life, but I'm determined to move forward and protect myself. Please don't post to other platforms, thanks. That's the end of our first post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, "Oh, she's definitely trying to squeeze you one last time. Mortifying. You made the right decision. There is light at the end of this tunnel. You will feel so much better and free once this runs its course. Horrible people." Our second commenter says, greater than she's refusing to leave unless I give her 6 months or a year of living costs and rent up front. The nerve. If for some reason you had any doubts whatsoever, this is the final proof that you made the right decision. Our third commenter says, honestly I'd rather pay that money in court fees to get her evicted legally and once and for all. Might not save you money but for the principle alone. For our second story, we have the story behind the bathroom of betrayal and subsequent breakup. Me female 41 and my partner male 44. Any advice? I posted about my bathroom makeover, here, link, earlier today, but that wasn't the place to go into detail about what made me paint a whole room. Fuck you pink, so here goes. My partner 44 male L and I 41 female have been together just about 15 years and have lived together in a house he bought for about 10. It's a 1-bedroom 1-bathroom with the basement remodeled to be another sleeping area, but in all this time it never felt like a forever home. Kid 1 came along and we tossed around the idea of buying something else, but house shopping seemed like it could wait. Then COVID and Kid 2 appeared and along with that a skyrocketing housing market, and suddenly we found ourselves priced out of our own area. We waited too long and had both a woefully inadequate home and inadequate income to purchase a house that was 1/4 of the price 2 years earlier. So we decided to build an addition. He's a really handy guy and has lots of carpentry experience, so we started looking for a loan to renovate. We were rejected but came up with a plan. Since the house was in his name only and we weren't married, we went to a lawyer who helped him sell the house to me for enough to pay off the mortgage with money left over to complete the work we needed done. Barely. The money went into his tax-free savings account and I got busy. Something about me very relevant to the story is I am absolutely passionate about interior design. When I was a little girl I watched Debbie Travis and any decorating show I could find. I had stacks of decor magazines. I spent hours and hours designing homes in The Sims. I've done a little renovating and have some basic knowledge, so let me tell you, when I got the change to design and build my own home I was ecstatic. I spent months planning and drawing every nuance of the floor plan down to every electrical outlet. I priced out and planned every piece of furniture and fixture and wall covering to my taste. I scoured Marketplace for incredible deals on fixtures and materials. I planned my dream kitchen and I planned, with my daughter, the fantasy forest bedroom of dreams. All within a razor-thin budget, with my partner and I doing the work we didn't absolutely have to hire contractors for. He was recently laid off from his job, so we decided I would work part-time and run my business I started and pad the rest of our living expenses on credit while he built the house and looked after the kids. It was fine at first. But progress was achingly slow. I began to get frustrated at the lack of actual work being completed, but I didn't want to nag at him and I knew it was hard juggling the kids and renovations. Besides, jobs always take much longer than you plan, so I kept my mouth shut while he seemed to do less and less. 2 years in and he had completed the foundation, most of the framing, the sheeting and the metal roof. By this time he wasn't really doing much day to day, wasn't talking about the renovations and had sunk into a depression. I tried to be supportive but he didn't open up to me. He booked an appointment for therapy and I thought we would get him looked after, then I could worry about the house later. By this time I had added far more to my debt than I had planned, supporting him while he neither worked nor worked on the house. It got to the point where I decided I would give up on my dream home and just hire people to complete the work to the bare minimum until I could take over the interior finishing work myself. It would be a very basic shell, and disappointed would be an understatement, but as long as my daughter got the dream bedroom complete with a loft bed sculpted to look like it grew there and murals I would paint for her, I would get over it because my kids needed bedrooms and at least I wouldn't have to break that promise I'd made her. He gave me a ballpark figure of what he thought it would cost in labor to finish, and when I got out my notebooks and went to compare what my budget said we had left compared to what was actually in the account, we bought a few small trees etc. and some topsoil, he got quiet. He said, "I think I need to leave," and assumed this weird stricken posture. His voice sounded funny and when I looked at him, I guessed. I said, "What did you do?" ? He said nothing for a second and then he told me he had spent it. All the money. Every last fucking cent. He went on to explain that's why he'd been so depressed lately, but in my rage I cut him off and told him to shove the poor me bullshit up his ass. I'm so sorry that destroying my life and ruining things for his kids made him sad, but fuck that. He had pissed away tens of thousands of dollars over the course of 2 years on things like Pepsi and cigarettes and bills he was never clear with me on and who knows what else. He listened to me and his little girl in our excitement plan her dream bedroom. He watched me research microcement suppliers for months to find the right deal. He answered my questions about plumbing, heating and electrical, all the while knowing it was never going to happen. He later explained that he had begun spending the money right away and at first it had never occurred to him that it wasn't his. And by the time it dawned on him that the money he wasted away was being paid each month by me, it was too late, so he just kept spending it until every last cent was gone. He took any chance his children had at adequate housing and wasted it away. Because now I'm in so much debt I can't even sell and hope to qualify for another mortgage. I have a useless partially finished addition rotting away on the side of my house that will only decrease in value over time and I can never hope to afford to finish. I can't provide bedrooms for my kids, and the mortgage on this house has more than tripled and is squarely in my name with nothing to show for it. Renting would be even more in this market. I can't even afford to kick him out, and even if I could I will not make my kid's father homeless since he's just recently started working again. My kids adore that man and I just cannot be vindictive enough to hurt them by hurting him. I'm such an idiot for trusting him and not checking on that money periodically. He'd ask me for money every month for bills but I just never did the math. I cried. I screamed. I broke up with him. I went to bed for a couple of weeks only moving when I had to go to work or look after my kids. I did a makeover of hatred on my bathroom using money from the sale of his motorcycle so I could maybe stand to live in this piece of shit 1-bedroom 1-bathroom house, but I just don't have a path forward with this. I could tell him to leave but then my kids would be devastated, I'd be stretched beyond my limit raising them alone and trying to take care of this house, job and business, and I'd rather the money he pays in rent somewhere go to paying my mortgage. But, WTF am I supposed to do now? I'm sure I've left out details, so I will answer the questions and take the comments about my own idiocy on the chin. That's the end of our second post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, first, he needs to move down to the basement. Second, I would tell him exactly how much money he owes you, because all of that money was not his money to spend. It was understood to be money that would be going into improvements on the house. You should have documentation of how much of the money was for the sale of the house and how much was meant for the improvements, right? Tell him that he can either pay you that money now, or he can pay it back on top of his rent. And yes, he owes you rent for the basement if he stays. If the kids are down there, too bad, so sad. He can sleep down there with the babies on an air mattress for all you care. If he doesn't like it, let him go. He's a shitty person. He can also explain to his children why they don't have bedrooms and why he has to go. Our second commenter says, this guy needs to be working all day long. 2 jobs. Weekends. He has a lot of bills to pay and he has spent thousands and thousands of dollars. So his focus for the next 10 years is work. Constant work. He did this to himself. And all that money needs to go into your account, and you give him a stipend out of it or he moves out of the house. That's what you do if someone has a problem. He betrayed you for years? He chose every day to do this. For years. It's financial abuse, is scumbag behavior. I wouldn't charge him rent, I'd take his money. And get a second job or he is out on his ear. Our third commenter says, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Getting your trust broken like that is a wound that will take a long time to heal. The situation you are in sounds impossible, but there is always a solution. Can you talk to parents, siblings, etc.? For our last story, we have help. 23 male and 20 female. Update, November 19, 24. I broke up with him. I sent the same breakup message to all the platforms and called the local PD of his town to go do a welfare check to make sure he was all right. He has been blocked, and I am safe. Thank you for everyone who helped and gave such support and advice. Original post. Hi, I wasn't too sure where to post this, but this seemed like the best place. I, 20 female, and my current boyfriend 23 male have been dating for roughly a month and it's been wonderful and fun in some aspects. We don't live in the same town, but he's about 3 hours away, so I'm not sure if that counts as long distance anyways. Some days he's super kind and funny and just all around. To clarify a few things, we met on an app called Boo, and at that time I was just looking for some friends to chat with. I have severe social anxiety, so I find online connections with friends are easier to maintain. And we chatted on that app for a bit and it was nice until we decided to trade Instagram and phone numbers, and that's where most of our communication has been. After about 3 weeks, I had brought up the idea of us sharing locations. It made me feel better knowing that he knew where I was, and if anything happened to me, he'd know. Silly me. Since he was an Android user and I was an iPhone user, we decided on using Life 360. So he had my location and I had his. We did occasional check-ins and things like that. Nothing that really flagged me as a red flag, you know? Another thing that I just thought of was, currently I don't have a car, so I usually Uber to work and have one of my coworkers drive me home after work since my town's Ubers stop running at a certain time at night. Most of the coworkers I work with are male, but they all knew I was in a relationship and had never made any advances towards me. Always keep everything platonic and respectful, more like siblings than coworkers, to be honest. One day I had mentioned to him that my coworker, who happened to be a male, was driving me home and he got very jealous. Started spam calling me and messaging me while I was in the car with said coworker. I messaged him when I got home and he responded with, I don't care if they are love. That felt a bit aggressive to me. I had previously mentioned to him how my coworkers and I were strictly platonic. Recently I had a family trip where I was exhausted and drained from spending lots of time with them and a lot of other things taking a toll on my mental health. I told a lot of my online friends and they were very respectful about it and said for me to take my time. And this is what happened when I went to go tell my boyfriend. And I'm not sure about that. It wasn't like I was going to break up with him. I just needed a few days to recenter myself and make sure I was okay, mentally and emotionally. Then about a week later, after him begging me and calling me and harassing my friends to tell me to respond to him, I told him I wanted to break up. It felt like things weren't working out for me, and I've tried telling him how I feel, but it felt like he's just dismissed my feelings and my thoughts. Trigger warning. Suicidal ideation. In this time period of us going through this rough patch, he was spam liking my stories and posts on Instagram and messaging me on nearly every single platform we had communication with each other. That felt like a final straw for me, and I called him and told him to stop and that I was done. He told me that if I left him, he was going to use the GN in his house and KLL himself. So I took him back and we're still dating. He thinks everything is fine, but I feel like I've been walking on eggshells around him for the past few days or so. Feel free to ask any questions, and all help, advice is greatly appreciated. Thank you for reading this whole post. I'm sorry it was so long. That's the end of our last post. Let's see what the commenters had to say. Our first commenter says, he is clearly controlling and overly obsessed. Threatening his own life just so he could have you as a partner is not right. This is a way so many men, and women, do to guilt trip their exes into getting back together. Do not allow him to control your life. I unfortunately understand your situation, and it is a slippery road. I left my ex because of his tendencies like these. It's a tough situation. I send prayers and good luck to you. Our second commenter says, I read up until you said it's been roughly a month together. I don't need to read further. If you are having issues a month in, just break it off. You work through problems when there's something worth saving. You haven't built anything yet, so there's nothing to fight for. Move on and get a partner that you can be happy with. Our third commenter says, why in the world would you share your location with someone you've only known for a month and have never met in person? That's all for today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.